Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me at this second International Alzheimer's Disease and Dementia Conference held in Rome, Italy in June 2023. The title of my presentation today is Negative Entropy-Driven Self-Assembly of Information-Containing Aperiodic Crystals Aimed at Increasing Brain Entropy in the Context of Alzheimer's Disease, Dementia, and Cognitive Decline. Please allow me to introduce myself. I obtained my MD in 1980. I have a PhD in molecular biology and specializations in diagnostic radiology. I worked as a young postdoc at Burroughs Wellcome Company in 1984 and as a visiting scientist later at the National Cancer Institute of the NIH in Bethesda, Maryland, USA. Later, I was appointed professor of molecular biology at the University of Firenze, Italy, in 1992, where I worked until 2014. I am the founder of Silver Spring, a Swiss company specialized in research and development of innovative approaches and products that will be described today. I published in the course of my career more than 240 scientific articles, co-authored, among others, by scientists such as Eduardo Lapetina, Stu Aronson, Jackie Pierce, Peter Duesberg, Henry Bauer, the late Jeff Breastreet, Dietrich Klingart. One of my articles was sponsored by Nobel laureate Sir John Bain. My current research interests are in neurosciences and the science of consciousness as they relate to neurodegenerative and neurodevelopmental diseases. And lately, I've had the honor and the privilege to collaborate with a Korean company called Dana Biologics. Before we start, please remember that no information in this talk is presented as medical advice. Standard of care for every disease must be followed, as well as rules and regulations established by health authorities of each country. I'd like to disclose my conflict of interest because I have designed and invented a number of protocols and approaches and products to different diseases, and I developed the approaches and the products mentioned in this talk. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Hyuk Choi of Dana Biologics of the Republic of Korea for his priceless support. And also I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference for this great opportunity to share the results of my research. The attendees, of course, have to be thanked for the attention that they will want to give to this presentation. So let's go to the topic of this talk. And let's start with introducing the entropic brain. Now, the entropic brain hypothesis contemplates that within upper and lower cutoff points beyond which consciousness may be significantly reduced or absent, the entropy of spontaneous cerebral activity represents a measure of the informational richness of conscious states. Consistent with this hypothesis, brain entropy, often abbreviated in BEN, increases during physiological development and decreases during states of reduced consciousness such as aging, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and cognitive decline. This sentence comes from a very recent article published in 2020. Alzheimer's disease showed catastrophic brain entropy reduction, which was related to more severe cognitive impairment and daily function disability. So it appears there is a straightforward link between brain entropy, consciousness, and loss of brain entropy and Alzheimer's disease, dementia, cognitive decline. Therefore, it seems logical that to try to fight these conditions or diseases, we have to restore brain entropy. And here I describe a biomolecular approach aimed at increasing brain entropy. This approach that I invented is based on negative entropy or entropy-driven self-assembly of two types of information-containing aperiodic crystals. The rationale leading to the development of information-containing crystals lays in the known association between entropy and information. The following sentence comes from a simple English Wikipedia, the Free Encyclopedia, and states very clearly, more clearly stated, information is an increase in uncertainty or entropy. The concept of information entropy was created by mathematician Claude Shannon and this is Professor Claude Shannon here from Wikipedia. As I said, we use two types of crystals. The first type of crystals consists of a polylysine and glutamic acid. Polylysine constitutes a backbone for the establishment of electrostatic bonds between the positively charged amino groups of polylysine and the negatively charged acidic moiety of glutamic acid. This is a skeletal structure of a monomer of epsilon polylysine, and usually polylysine is composed of approximately 25 to 30 residues like this, and this is glutamic acid. And you can see the acidic moiety is very clearly represented in this skeletal structure. The second type of crystals consists of a mixture of lysine, alanine, tyrosine, 3 amino acids, and cyanocobalamin, or vitamin B12, that is complexed through formation of electrostatic bonds with the acidic backbone constituted by the sulfated polysaccharides, where the negatively charged sulfate ester and the carboxylic groups of the polysaccharides bind to the positively charged moieties of the amino acids and cyanocobalamin. So this is the backbone of the polysaccharides, and these are the non-covalent bonds with the amino acids alanine, tyrosine, lysine, or vitamin B12. The two types of crystals interact with each other in a CO2-enriched hydrophilic medium, with a resulting self-assembly of complex structures that are composed of random-sized aperiodic crystals of, on one side, polylysine and glutamic acid, and the other side, the sulfated polysaccharides bond to lysine, alanine, tyrosine, and cyanocobalamin. Although the crystals are formed through negentropy-driven self-assembly, because of their random size and therefore random distribution of electrical charges on their molecular surface, they do contain an elevated degree of information. Once formed, the crystals are assembled under the form of a capsule that can be ingested, and brain entropy measurements and clinical observation are then performed. How do we measure brain entropy? There are different techniques. One technique that we perfected over the years is transcranial ultrasonography that is performed on the temporal lobes. Another technique is to measure the neural activity in the anterior parts of the prefrontal cortex, what is called Area 10 of Brodmann classification, by monitoring cerebral oxygenation and blood volume changes using functional near-infrared spectroscopy. And then there is a cognitive assessment questionnaire that indirectly measures brain entropy. This picture represents a typical transcranial ultrasonography. And this picture, taken from this article in Sensor of 2021, represents a typical brain entropy measurement by measuring cerebral oxygenation and blood volume changes. For the evaluation of brain entropy, we applied a technique of transcranial ultrasonography that we developed since 2012, so more than 10 years ago. And this technique was developed for the study of the brain in healthy individuals, as well as in all types of primates, as well as in subjects with autism. This is the first article published in 2013, but submitted in 2012, where we first described this technique of transcranial sonography. That is a technique for the study of the temporal lobes of the human and non-human primate brain. And this was published in the Italian Journal of Anatomy and Embryology. Later, a couple of years later, in 2014, together with the late Dr. Jeff Bradstreet, undisputed authority in the field of autism and good friend of mine, we published in the very highly respected journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience this article where we applied this technique of transcranial ultrasonography to the study of the brains of autistic children, and we found very, very interesting results. Now, this is a typical image coming from transcranial ultrasonography of the temporal lobes. And we can study the meninges, but we can study the brain cortex with a degree of definition that is comparable to histologic analysis, where we can actually study the neuronal layers. For example, this is the neuronal layer number 5 that is constituted by deep pyramidal cells, and this is the neuronal layer number 6, polymorphic cells. So we can study the brain cortex with a high degree of definition. And this is what entropy appears. This is how entropy appears. So this is a before assumption of the crystals, and this is after. To the non-trained eye, as I said, I am a radiologist, so my eyes are quite well trained to find out the differences. To the non-well-trained eye, these two images may look very similar, if not identical. Actually, they are not. Even if you are not trained as a radiologist, you can see that this is kind of whiter. And here you can see more information. Here you can see less dark holes everywhere, less dark here, whiter, kind of whiter, and more information. And that's actually what we measure. By the way, the measure of entropy in ultrasonography is not our invention. For example, it is routinely done in the study of the liver. In this case, in the study of the liver, an increase of entropy is a bad thing because it correlates with the steatosis, and so is not a good sign of a healthy liver. So the novelty here is not in the use of entropy in ultrasonography. The novelty here is on the application of this technique to the study of the brain cortex. So we can measure entropy in the brain cortex using ultrasonography, and we observed an increase of brain entropy following the assumption of the two types of crystals that I have described before. But this is not the only technique that we use to assess the increase or the restoration of brain entropy following the assumption of those crystals. Because we also measured the neural activity in the anterior parts of the prefrontal cortex here, the area of the Brodmann classification, by monitoring the cerebral oxygenation and the blood volume changes. And in this case, we use a near-infrared spectroscopy. And we performed our observation according to a well-established protocol that was originally described by Hogman and Rapkines, I hope I pronounced their names correctly, coming from the Department of Psychology of the University of Stockholm in Sweden. They demonstrated that near-infrared spectroscopy probes neuronal activity through cerebral oxygenation and blood volume changes, because it measures the cerebral hemodynamic responses by near-infrared light. And the rationale behind the technology is that changes in cerebral oxygen consumption increase with synaptic activity in a linear manner. So this is one observation representative of many others that we have performed, and you can see the total increase of brain activation following the assumption of those crystals, which corresponds to a total increase of brain entropy or richness of information. In this particular case, the increase was over 300% of neural activity in comparison with control. As I said, this is just one observation out of very many that we have performed and we are still performing. And then we have a kind of semi-objective measurement, that is the cognitive assessment questionnaire. This questionnaire was developed by Broadbent and colleagues in 1982, and it assesses the frequency with which people experience cognitive failures, such as absent-mindedness in everyday life, slips and errors of perception, memory, and motor functioning. With the use of the crystals described above, we observed a significant improvement in the following subscores. There are several scores, but in these two subscores, we observed a significant improvement. What is called a forgetfulness, and it is studied by those items. That is a tendency to let go from one's mind something known or planned, for example, names, intentions, appointments, and words. And we observe significant improvement in these functions. And what is called distractibility, that is measured by those items, 8, 9, 10, and so on. And this is described as mainly in social situations or interactions with other people, such as being absent-minded or easily disturbed in one's focused attention. Such an increase in cognition that is measured by this questionnaire is reflected by subjective observations, that is reports, subjective reports, that were reported and described in a patent application filed with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. We have many reports. Here I take the liberty to read only 5 of those. They come from the Republic of Korea, from other parts in Europe. So please forgive if the English is not like the English that is spoken in Oxford or Cambridge, UK. Because they are translated word by word. Female, 65 years old. She's been taking the supplement for 30 days. Her head was heavy and dull, and her ability to think was not smooth. After taking it for 10 days, she felt a change in her head becoming clearer. Now that 30 days have passed, her thinking is as fresh as it was 10 years ago. This second one comes from Europe. Female, 75 years old, taking the supplements for 30 days. She's a long-term cancer survivor, and she reports significantly improved speech flow, self-awareness and mindfulness, improved short and long-term memory, and better relationship with acquaintances as well as strangers. She also notices a much greater control on her temper. She's now able to relate with people she doesn't like without losing her temper. The third one is a male, 74 years old, taking the supplements for 45 days. He had a head operation 6 years ago due to a brain hemorrhage. After that, due to the after effects of the operation, his brain activity dropped markedly, and his behavior became unnatural, making it difficult to adapt to social activities. On the 7th day of taking it, the efficacy is quite rapid in many cases. It was enough to detect positive changes in brain activity. After 30 days of taking it, brain activity was activated, and he was able to engage in social activities like before the surgery. He was determined to continue taking it for the rest of his life. And you can understand this, because when you see such dramatic changes, then you want to keep those positive changes for as long as possible. The other one is a male, 72 years old, taking the supplements for 45 days. He had the colon cancer surgery 2 or 3 years ago. Now his physical strength is or was extremely low. He could not come home alone. He had to go out. He couldn't go out without his family's help. After 18 days of taking the supplement, there was a change in physical strength recovery. After 20 days, communication improved to the extent the communication was now possible. After 40 days of taking it, the shopping mission, that is going to buy apples, for example, at the local supermarket, was a success, which was actually a big success for this man. And the last one I wanted to share with you, as I said, there are hundreds more, but I just chose the most significant, or those that most impressed me, because I knew a few of them. A male, 78 years old, taking the supplement for 46 days. He thought he had a neuralgia due to aging. He suffered from neuralgia, a tingling, burning, and painful sensation, as if electricity were flowing momentarily. After 10 days of taking it, his body seemed to feel lighter and became more energetic. After 30 days, he realized that the neuralgia symptoms that caused the pain had completely disappeared. So you see here we have objective measurements like transcranial ultrasonography, near-infrared spectroscopy, measurement of brain activity. We have a semi-subject or semi-objective determination like the questionnaire, and fully subjective reports that, however, are absolutely true. that all converge to the same conclusion. And the conclusion is that objective results and subjective observations demonstrate, without any shadow of doubt, that the information containing aperiodic crystals that I described in this talk restore brain entropy. They do actually restore brain entropy. And here I could talk for hours to explain the mechanism of action that also involves some hints of quantum molecular biology, but could be too long. The end result is that they improve brain neural activity, they counteract cognitive decline. And because of this, these crystals, this approach, they do represent a novel approach to the prevention and treatment of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and cognitive decline, and possibly other neurological or neurodevelopmental disorders. I thank you so much for your attention. It has been a great opportunity to share the results of this very exciting research. Thank you so much.